Oi oi, right, how's it going? I'm Grant, this is Doodle Review, and after wrapping a week of heavy metal reviews covering everyone from Metallica to Code Orange, we're going to tone it down with a week of more straight down the middle rock reviews. And what better way to start it than with one of the biggest bands of the 90s, Oasis. Last week saw the reissue and remaster of the band's legendary 1998 compilation album, The Masterplan. Released after the run of star-making trinity of original Oasis albums, Definitely Maybe in 94, Morning Glory in 95 and Be Here Now in 97, the Masterplan collected the many B-sides released alongside the singles of those records over the years. And it seems mad to have to do this, but for anyone born after the year 2000, it might not be immediately clear what B-side means, because in the age of downloads and streaming, it's a phenomenon that's been somewhat lost. Back in the day when album tracks were released to radio and promoted as singles, they would actually be sold as like a 7-inch vinyl or tape or later a CD. And to make this a compelling purchase for the people that had already bought the album or were planning to buy the album, the record labels would include extra tracks you couldn't get on the main album. And most of the time, those extra tracks, or B-sides, because they were originally on the opposite side of the vinyl to the single, which was the A-side, these extra tracks were other songs from the album session that didn't make it, or they were covers, live tracks, or more commonly in the early 2000s, remixes, which kind of always felt like a bit of a cop-out, but occasionally you get the odd banger. The closest thing we have to this now, obviously, are the deluxe editions of albums released to streaming with 5 or 6 extra songs on top of the core track list. And without sounding like too much of an old fart, this just isn't the same to me anyway, for a few reasons. And I'm going to have a rant here, but whatever. One, I'm just a big believer that an album should be seen as like one artistic statement. You know, the songs chosen and the order they're presented in are important. So to just dash 5 or 6 songs on top that by virtue of being bonus tracks and not the core album tracks you're admitting aren't as good, just kind of compromises that. And two, the whole thing about B-sides that made them cool was the scarcity aspect to it. You only knew them if you had the singles, and I'm just over 30, so I just missed the core years of buying singles, but I had a few of them. But I also remember being a teenager and that kind of like scouring online forums before streaming was a thing and trying to find these mysterious other tracks of your favourite band. And there was something to these songs being a little inaccessible that made it all the sweeter when you found them. To say it improved the quality is romanticising things, but there was something to be said about the thrill to that chase. Compilations of B-sides, similar to greatest hits comps, were often put out towards the end of a career, or at least in a bit of an off period for the band. But in the case of Oasis, the caliber of songwriting was so high, the songs so good, that these tracks were deemed worthy of their own release just a few years into their career. In the context of Oasis history, the Masterplan came at the end of an era. Oasis Mania had just reached a fever pitch in the UK in the immediate years before, with massive shows at Nebworth in which millions of people applied for tickets, and then the huge anticipation, promotion and somewhat deflation of Be Here Now, the group's third record in the summer of 97. At the time, there was a bit of a feeling that after all of the band's big talk and bluster, Be Here Now was a critical and commercial disappointment. But in hindsight, I see this as only partially true, with most of that narrative fueled by a kind of schadenfreude of the UK media. Yes, Be Here Now was way overproduced, a little bloated and a little high on its own supply, but in hindsight it's still the third best Oasis record, and the talk of commercial disappointment still seems dumb, as it was the UK's biggest selling record in 97 and has gone on to sell millions more in the years since. But while this narrative commanded the popular opinion though, in 98 when the Masterplan was released, the Masterplan, with the majority of its tracks taken from the supposed glory years of Definitely Maybe and Morning Glory, became not just a good business decision to shift a bunch more CDs, but a way to subtly remind fans of the group's early rough and ready sound and what made Oasis so good. There's a bit of a classic rhetoric among fans, and even sometimes echoed by Noel Gallagher himself, that just by saving some of the B-sides collected here and using them for Be Here Now, or Even just outright replacing that record with the Masterplan would have made for a better third album and maybe even ushered in another wave of Oasis hysteria, but that's not something I've ever bought into. Yes, this is a great compilation. It's one of the rare examples of a compilation album standing shoulder to shoulder with and even above some of the band's core records, but this is still a selection of offcuts, and while we might like to romanticize all the songs here, some of them wear their weaker qualities pretty plainly on their sleeves. Personally, I've never been a fan of the jam night at a local blues night of Swamp Song. I think it works perfectly as originally intended, like banged out live at a festival to get the audience going, or in its truncated incarnation as a segue on Morning Glory. But as a full song on an album, it's one for the completists. Equally, I Am the Walrus serves as a great reminder of the band's power in a live setting with a fantastic vocal performance from Liam, but it is more of a curiosity than it is a compelling lost treasure. I love the self-awareness of the band to cheekily nod to Listen Up's similarity to Supersonic in that song's intro, and while I really enjoy this track, especially that almost ambulance-like lead guitar in the chorus, arrangement-wise it's too long and could do with some editing, as could Stay Young, both proving that the band's overindulgence didn't just spring up from nowhere on Be Here Now. I'll admit these are really minor critiques and more concluded to argue against the notion that this is some perfect lost album or that this compilation might genuinely have made a better third album. If I step out of the ring of that argument though, I think this collection is hugely enjoyable when viewed for what it is. A document of a band that were great from the start but somehow got even better during the period this record collects. Coincidentally, proving that point are the two tracks I just chastised for being a bit long and all over the place. Listen Up and Stay Young, which have some of the rawest vocal performances from Liam, and it's a joy to hear the frontman preserved in this really unique moment in his career. He's kind of still carrying that rock star self-assured energy, but also really pushing and striving to hit those notes and nail the performance. And for what these vocal takes lack in musical perfection, which fuck that anyway, but what they lack they make up for in spades with charisma and energy, and that energy spreads to the whole band on the distorted and muddy banger Fade Away, a track that literally sounds like opening the door on a rehearsal space. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have Underneath the Sky, where the production is just off the scale, but in this case it all comes together to make something really unique and is one of my favourites in the set. The backing vocals on the chorus, the organ and all of the instruments that just come in and out, it's such a cool little psychedelic number but wrapped up in a really strong, straightforward song. It's almost not worth mentioning the absolute classics included here, but I'm going to anyway. Talk Tonight might be one of Noel's best tracks, and the production with that very subtle electric piano perfectly captures that dark night of the soul theme, and that production also really shines on the Burt Bacharach nodding Half the World Away, balancing piano and guitar perfectly. Acquiesce might be my favourite Oasis song. It's almost strange to revisit it here after becoming more familiar with the faster paced live recordings, but it's no less fantastic. It's a banger track anyway, but made all the more classic by both Gallaghers going back and forth on vocals and the kind of sad poignancy of the "we need each other" lyrics. The Masterplan closes the compilation, which is rightly acknowledged as a masterpiece of songwriting, but for me, controversially, I've always been a bit dismissive of this one, even though I know it's great. The horns just conjure very patriotic flag wavy images, which is not my thing, and I can't get rid of the sense that if it hasn't already, at some point it will soundtrack a McCain oven chip advert. Regardless, by the time it comes round at the end of the record, it's hard not to be swept up in it. All of this comes together to form a compilation which, as I've said, is not flawless. I'd give the album a 7 out of 10, but it's not flawless, but it is essential. Tell me what you think though. Did I get this right? What was your favourite track? Let me know, or just hurl some abuse in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.